Yo, what's up guys? Today I want to talk about one of the best Paladin builds for leveling in Diablo 4 Season 12, and it is the Divine Arbiter of Justice Paladin. Now this is a build you can take from level 1 all the way up to high torment levels. I'm showing here just blasting through torment 3s with no uniques, just basic gear. And I've tailored this build to be perfect for Season 12. Season 12 is all about the streak system, so keeping a streak up as long as possible, meaning you have to move from pack to pack as fast as possible and take down the mobs instantly. So you want to have a build that is fast, good movement, but a good amount of AoE, which is exactly what this has. The build is designed around staying in the Arbiter of Justice form as much as possible. The build's got everything you could need for leveling. It's got a ton of passive damage from having double aura. Arbiter wings will flick enemies as you go past automatically, and it has a ton of movement with Divine Lance giving you a little leap forward. You've got the Falling Skies, and then you've got the Arbiter as well. So you have a ton of movement, a ton of passive damage, so you should just fly to max level with this. Okay, so let's get into the build, starting with the skill tree. So from the top, you want to take Holy Bolt. This is going to be used to generate faith, which is how we cast all our abilities, and it also applies a few things to enemies, which works well for us. You just put 1 point in here because we're not using this for the damage it deals. You put 1 point there, 1 point in Enhanced, and then 1 point into Divine Bolt. This turns into a Disciple skill, so anything that impacts Disciple skills impacts this, and it will apply Vulnerable to enemies, so enemies will take 20% more damage. Pretty good, and we have a few things that trigger off a Vuln, so that works really well. On our main core skill, we go for Divine Lance. Now again, this is also a Disciple skill. We have Divine Lance's damage is increased by your movement speed, which is fantastic. You want a 5 out of 5 this, pretty much just jump into a pack, hold this down, everything melts. You want to go for Enhanced here, and then you want to go for Tip of the Spear. So you hit 2 times, and if you defeat a vulnerable enemy, you increase your attack speed up to 30%. So you already see the combo there, generate vulnerable, and then pop it right there for increased attack speed. So easy to do. Then we have Piety here. Your max faith is increased by 15, and then we go for Discipline. Your core skills deal 18% more damage. Now, one thing I will say is we use a two-handed weapon, so lots of these nodes that look really useful, and you think, oh, why aren't we taking these? A lot of them require blocking and shields. We don't do that. We just go big two-hander, loads of damage. So on the auras, we go for Fanaticism Aura. So what this does is it has a passive thing. So that's just, as long as it's on your bar, you gain the benefits of that. So you can see there, animates power, giving you attack speed and crit strike chance. And then when you press it, it also does a thing. So we take Enhanced here to also gain max resource, which is our faith. And then we go for Rite of Humility. So it makes nearby enemies vulnerable, and then damaging vulnerable enemies will trigger this passive. So really good combo with the build we have. We skip those. Originally I had these, but I want the build to be a lot faster this season, so I've skipped those for this season. Down here we go for Falling Star. This is just our jump in the air and then just dive down with the lance. It's so much fun, and it's really good mobility, really good damage as well. 5 out of 5 that. Then you go for defeating a vulnerable enemy, reduces the cooldown of Falling Star, and as you saw, we have lots of ways to trigger Vuln. Then we have down here, Faster Than Light, cuts through the battlefield, creating a fissure that deals damage, so it's just still damage boost. Down here, we take the second aura, we go for Condemn. So this isn't an aura in the same way as before where it has a passive. This is just a circle around you that you activate. So harness the light and pull in enemies, briefly stunning them and dealing damage. You go while casting it, become unhindered, and then down here, you go for Gather the Guilty, has 1 additional charge and applies Vulnerable. If we didn't have enough ways to trigger Vulnerable, now we do. So then we want to go into a lot of passives here. You go 3 into Crack the Armor for increased damage to vulnerable enemies, and 3 into High Charity for increased cooldown reduction. Down here we go 3 crit strike damage, 3 in here for crit strike chance and increased damage to weakened enemies, and then 3 in here for increased crit strike damage. You go 1 here in Pacify to go into 3 Dizzying Blows for increased damage to crowd control, and then finally in the ultimate section, you want to take the Arbiter of Justice. This is probably my favorite ability in the game. I absolutely love it. You just take on this heavenly form with these giant wings behind you, and the wings just flick enemies as you walk past them. I love it. It's amazing, and I hope you enjoy this playstyle too. So we 5 out of 5 that. We put 1 point into the Wing Strikes recast time is reduced, and then 1 point into Seraph's Wings. So the wings gain, so the form gains the following benefits: 100% movement speed, the wings deal increased damage, and the wings apply Vulnerable. Yet another way to apply Vulnerable. 1 point in here, 3 points into Giant Slayer for increased damage to elites, and then 3 points into Sacred Arms. So two-handers, you gain increased crit strike damage. And then finally down here, you go for Exaltation. During Arbiter, your damage is increased by 85%, and Wing Strikes strike additional time. Now, there is a very, very powerful node here. Your damage is increased by 70% of your block chance, and you can see here where my character is like pretty much near endgame. It's a leveling build, but you can use it quite deep into the torments. this is a very, very good damage buff, and there is a very good reason to use this, and there's a lot of good use cases for this, but I don't think it's good for leveling, because for leveling, I think just go two-hander, big damage, and you're not going to hit the things you need to get the benefit out of this. So I would just run this exaltation all the way. I do want to make a end game version of this, which may look something like, you know, going into coat of arms, but for now, I would stick with exaltation. That's it pretty much. If you find yourself at end game, never using your basic attack, you can flick a couple of extra points into a passive, something like this one down here. Once you've got uniques, that will give you, you know, extra damage, extra armor, but you need uniques to have that. So I'd probably, you know, once you get a few uniques, you find yourself never using that, you have like 100% faith regeneration, dip those 2 points out, come down here, put them into that. But that's the skill tree. Okay, on the oaths, there's no reason to talk about anything other than a disciple. Casting a disciple skill with a cooldown grants Arbiter for 4.5 seconds. So you get the Arbiter form, increased movement speed, evade is replaced by angelic leap, and wing strikes attack around you. So every time you use disciple skill with a cooldown, you gain that, and the wing strikes gain the benefits of disciple. It's absolutely perfect. Lots of these are really good and would work in this build, but you would have to build the build around it to trigger them. This just fits perfectly from level. As soon as you unlock it, it fits. You don't need to do anything to make it work. And when we talk about disciple skills with a cooldown, you can see if you go onto your hotbar, you have Falling Star, you have Condemn, you have this one here, the Arbiter of Justice, and that's pretty much the three you'll be using all of the time. And when it comes to disciple skills with a cooldown, that's pretty much everything we have. We have Falling Star, that's a disciple skill. We have Condemn is a disciple skill, and then our ultimate, our Arbiter of Justice, is also a disciple skill. You know, the Lance is a disciple skill, but it doesn't have a cooldown, so that doesn't count. But you'll be pressing these three all the time, so you'll trigger this a lot. Okay, so now for the gear and the aspects, and I'm going to use the build guide to show this because it's just really easy to see everything all in one spot. And this has got everything you'll need. It's got the skill tree, the Paragon Board, everything. I'll link it down below if you want to use it. And if you have any questions on it, let me know. So if you are new to Diablo 4, one thing that you need to know is the aspect you put on your weapon has a 200% buff, and the aspect that you put on your amulet has a 150% buff. So they are very important choices. So just, you know, bear that in mind. On the weapon, you want to be taking the aspect of Ligera's Sovereignty. Now, what this does is it increases your disciple skills damage by up to 60%. Given that that's pretty much all of our abilities, that's a 60% flat buff to everything. On the amulet, we go for Celestial Strife, while in Arbiter form, every time you defeat a mob, you gain increased vuln damage up to a maximum of 125%. And you saw when we went over the skill tree, we have, what, 5 ways to make enemies vulnerable. So this is fantastic, and it works perfectly in this build. Now, the other key ones are the 2 rings. So we have the aspect of Ascension. Casting a skill that grants Arbiter form increases your damage by 12%, stacking 10 times, which means you'll get up to 120% additional damage. On the other ring, we go for the aspect of Tyrell's Jurisdiction. Now, this is the wings. So the wind strikes now seek enemies and deal up to 240% increased damage. So you can see this is a absolute pumper. Then for everything else, I'll go top to bottom. We go for Heavenly Strength on the helmet. Your damage reduction is increased by 20% while wielding a 2-handed weapon, which is good because it means we can go all out damage and then we still get a good defensive off of it. We go for our disciple skills, now weaken enemies on the chest. We go for aspect of Holy Punishment, so our holy damage is increased by 70%. And if you go through your skill tree and you hover over things, you can't see it so much here, but if you go into your skill tree, you can see that the things are holy, like the abilities we're using are holy damage tagged. So, you know, it's in the description at the bottom of each ability. So it does work. So if you weren't sure. On the pants, we go for the Wild Boar aspect. So every couple of seconds, distant enemies are pulled in and take 10% increased damage. This is just good to get them ready for your lance. So you just pull them in, lance them, perfect. On the boots, we go for the aspect of Metamorphosis. Your evade turns you into a cloud of bats. Enemies along your path take physical damage. It's just really, really good. It's good mobility, it's good movement, and it helps you get around a little bit. So that's all the aspects. And one thing I will say is if you're looking at this and thinking, you know, oh, that's too many aspects to get during the leveling, you don't need a single one of these for it to work. No, this build isn't relying on a specific aspect. A lot of builds are. A lot of builds need a certain thing to trigger or a certain combo. This doesn't. Everything here just works off the fly. So if you only find 4 of these while leveling, you're still going to have a really smooth journey because the build is strong on its own. So if you find, the more you find, the stronger you get. And as you start pushing out of level 16 into torments with this, which it works to do, you're just going to get stronger and stronger. The only other thing is the gear stats and tempering. So when it comes to the stats, ranks are key. If you ever find ranks 2, an ability that you're using, use it. So I've put them all in here. So Falling Star on the helmet, Phantasm Aura on the chest, Divine Lance on the gloves, etc., etc. Wherever you see a skill that you're using and it has ranks 2, use that. Additionally, you want to go for anything that has faith per second, armor, health, resistance, strength, all that sort of stuff is really, really good. Then when it comes to tempering, the big temper you want is Divine Lance size. Anywhere you can get it, which is a lot of places, you want Divine Lance size. This is one of our main things that we deal damage with. It's the only thing we have that isn't on a cooldown that, you know, actually does damage. So you want to get it as big as possible so it can just take out a massive pack in one go. On your weapon, you want to get chance for Divine Lance to deal double damage. And then you're kind of funneling all of this power into getting into a pack, pulling them in, and then just bursting them down with Divine Lance. So yeah, that's the build. It worked extremely smooth last season, and there's been very little change to the Paladin coming into season 12, and I've tailored it a little bit to have more speed and have more mobility, and it should take you very far. Okay, so now let's talk about the Paragon board, and this is a leveling build. So what I try and do with my leveling builds is have them so that you can get to endgame, you can get to torments, get up in the torment levels, defeat the bosses, get the uniques, and then transition into an endgame build. So this can easily take you into Torment 4, get into the bosses, and etc. So I've given you 3 Paragon boards, which is enough to take you very, very far. I'm going to work on an endgame build version of this, or you can move into a different endgame build depending on, you know, the meta and depending on what you feel like when you get there. So this is what I would recommend starting with. So you want to go both sides of the first tree. In the middle, you want to take Apostle. This gives you, for every 5 strength, your Disciple skills deal increased damage, and Disciple skills deal additional damage to vulnerable enemies. The way I've worked this is upfronting most of the damage because you want your first few points to be really good. In an endgame window, when you switch over, you can just dump 200 points, but early on, every point matters, right? So here, every point of strength gives you more damage. There are 105 points of strength here in this first circle once you get your glyph leveled. So really good start point. Get everything you can see here. There's loads of good stuff. Come to the next one and you want to go for the Divinity board. This gives you this glyph here. While in Arbiter form, you deal 90% increased damage to vulnerable enemies. We have so many ways to make enemies vulnerable, so you're chilling. You want to twist this around and you want to put your glyph slot down here. You want to come into the glyph slot and you want to put in Arbiter. Every 5 points within range increases your Arbiter's wing damage. You deal increased damage for each second you've been in Arbiter form as well. So this is very, very powerful. Then you can just take everything around it. You've got a ton of good nodes, damage, vulnerable damage, all that stuff around here, vulnerable damage, strength. On top of that, you also have points for each willpower you get, and there's 74 points of willpower in this first node. So then come to here and you want to get both of these clusters here. You've got a vulnerable damage cluster, and then you've got an armor and resistance cluster up here, and up there you've got another armor and life cluster. Next board, you want to go for Relentless, and you want to grab this node here, which is while moving and for 2 seconds after, you deal 80% increased damage and have cooldown reduction. You will always be moving. This is a build designed around speed, and season 12 is the season of speed, so it works perfectly. In here, you've got a bunch of movement speed as well. You've also got cooldown reduction. And then for the glyph, I would go for Exploit, which is increased damage to vulnerable targets, which fits the leveling build absolutely perfectly. And again, you've got a ton of nodes to take around it. That's more than enough to get you going. If people really want to use this all the way to endgame and they don't want to switch over, let me know. I'll try and chuck a couple of extra boards on. But what you'll see is, especially with the Paladin, lots of the boards are designed around certain interactions. So Zealot, Feather, that sort of stuff. And this build is kind of a very simple, just a couple of mechanics put together to really pump damage. It doesn't try and do everything. Whereas when we're trying to pick up all the different stats at endgame, you want to be dipping into lots of different systems. So for an endgame build, you can really make use of all these extra Paragon boards. So like I say, I'm going to work on an endgame version, but that's why we've not got 5 boards here. But like I say, this will take you deep into endgame. So yeah, I hope you found this useful. If you do, let me know if you have any questions. If you want to subscribe, there'll be more coming as we get into the season. But thank you so much for watching. Take care, and I'll catch you in the next one.